Salut everyone and welcome to part 2 of 20 French expressions commonly used in English. Now in this video we cover numbers 11 till 20. In case you've missed out on numbers 1 to 10, that's part 1, I've left the link to the same in the description box. For now, let's march on with part 2 starting with number 11. So as you know that France and fragrance go hand in hand, and if you've ever been curious about the French written on fragrance bottles, I've taken the liberty of clubbing together numbers 11, 12 and 13 to have ourselves a rather informative start. Let's go to number 11. So at number 11 we have something that you find mentioned on every cologne bottle that's especially manufactured in France, and you have those words as eau de cologne. And the literal meaning over here, eau is French for water, de is your preposition of, and then you've got cologne, that's French for the place Cologne, that's in Germany, where such sort of a perfume was manufactured for the first time in the 1700s. So the meaning coming out as eau de Cologne, water of Cologne, and for obvious reasons because it was manufactured in Cologne, Germany. Now coming to the pronunciation, as I just spoke out the native French pronunciation, which is, let's dissect that, getting into that. So EAU quite simply ends up as O. Then we come to DE. Now this is the tricky part. D over here, DE ends up as a very subtle and short-lived D. A soft D, D. Make sure you do not prolong or extend its pronunciation as D. Quite simply a touch and go D. So you've got eau de, coming to Cologne, you've got co, lo, near. Now why that near feeling? The reason for that unlike in English where G and N may most likely end up as just ne with a silent G, in French G and N, whenever they occur together, or mostly whenever they occur together, they end up as near. And that's why you've got Cologne. So once again, that French native pronunciation put together, eau de Cologne. Eau de Cologne. Let's contrast this with the English pronunciation. If you're not a French pupil, you needn't worry about the French pronunciation. You can have the alternative English pronunciation as eau de. Now this time you're going to have that hard D, and the E will also sound off as de. So you've got eau de Cologne, and you've got yourself eau de Cologne. Let's contrast one more time. Eau de Cologne. But if you want to keep it simple in English, you've got eau de Cologne. So eau de Cologne in English and eau de Cologne in French. We move on to the next type of fragrance, and then eventually we'll contrast and compare their meanings as well. We move on to number 12. At number 12 we have something that you find written commonly on perfume bottles, and the words read eau de parfum, which literally means very similar to eau de Cologne, water of perfume. So once again, the meanings are same. You've got eau for water, de for off, and parfum, parfum, that's the equivalent of the French equivalent for perfume. Coming to the French native pronunciation as spoken already, so EAU becomes O, DE, once again that subtle D, and then you've got parfum, that becomes parfum. Now why the h sound? Now as already discussed in part 1, that the French R in between words is a harsh glottal arising from the throat gargly h sound, and that's why par takes the shape of pach. Fum is a combination of the consonant F sound as f, and then the M is just a nasal N joining together as fin, coming out of the nose as fin, and together you have parfum. So very slowly going over there, you've got the French pronunciation as eau de parfum. One more time slowly, eau de parfum, and quickly eau de parfum. But once again, you needn't get overwhelmed. If you're only into English, then you have an alternative English pronunciation over here. And I'm happy to tell you that you can drop the rules of the French pronunciation. That's to say that your subtle D, the soft D as the over here, once again turns into the harsh D. And you've got the R, which stays the simple R as in English. You do not need that raspy H over here, giving you in English the English version as eau de parfum. So one more time, eau de parfum. fin. You do maintain that nasal N at the end. Other than that, you change your D and your R as in English, eau de parfum. So once again, contrasting and comparing before we move on. In French, eau de parfum, and in English, eau de parfum. So we move on to the next one, number 13. At number 13, we have another sort of fragrance, and the words this time read eau de toilette. Now, when I go ahead and decipher its meaning in English, I beg you not to get any ideas, because there's a very strong likelihood of that happening, and you'll very shortly see why. So when literally translated into English, eau de toilette comes out as water of toilet, or quite simply toilet water. Yeah, like I told you, do not get any ideas. It's got nothing to do with any foul odors. Do not have your mind lingering anywhere close to the toilet seat. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just a coincidence. It's called toilet water. Now, I'm no perfumery expert, but if I had to guess, this is the sort of fragrance that you splash on after a shower. So perhaps you have this bottle lying on any of your bathroom shelves, and hence the name toilet water, but no smelly business here, no foul odors, pure fragrance. So with that, we move on to the French native pronunciation. So as spoken already, you've got the French pronunciation as eau de toilette. So in French, you've got your soft T's giving you eau de toilette as eau de toilette. However, in the English version, of course, once again, you drop the rules of French pronunciation. You have the harder T and the harder D giving you eau de toilette. Once again, eau de toilette. Comparing eau de toilette, and in English, you have eau de toilette. Now, I realize that this is not a perfumery lecture, nor I a fragrance expert. Nonetheless, at this juncture, I feel it my responsibility to help you quickly distinguish among the three fragrances. And the difference, or the basis of distinction, is the amount of, or the percentage of fragrant oil composition that each of them contain. So we start with the strongest, which is at number 12. You've got eau de parfum or eau de parfum. So eau de parfum is the strongest for obvious reasons. It's got 15 to 20% of fragrant oil or perfume composition, making it the strongest and the most long-lasting. It can easily last you the whole day. We come to its weaker cousin, that is eau de toilette, of course, for the reason that in here the fragrant oil composition is from 5 to 15%, making it long-lasting, or rather good enough for half a day, perhaps maximum till the evening at best. And then we have the weakest cousin right on the top, that's eau de cologne or eau de cologne, and that's for the simple reason, as you can see, that the fragrant oil composition in here is a meager 2 to 6%. So that's good enough for, I guess, a few hours. Again, no expert. That's what my guess would say. So very quickly, the strongest being eau de parfum or eau de parfum. The second best being eau de toilette or eau de toilette. And finally, the weakest, you've got eau de cologne or eau de cologne. So that's about the fragrant section, the fragrant informative section right at the beginning. And with this, we move on to the more regular French words used in English. Let's go ahead to number 14. At number 14, we've got the word passé. So as you can see over here, we've got the aigu on top of E. As discussed in the previous video, the aigu is responsible for changing the E sound into the A sound, as in the word café. So by the same logic over here, we've got passé. And passé in French quite literally means something that is gone by. However, in English, we use it for anything that is considered no longer fashionable or out of date. So since we talk about no longer fashionable, you can definitely use it for clothes, and that's exactly what the first example is based on. So you have that sentence as baggy jeans are passé, slim fits are in. So that's to say that baggy jeans are outmoded or old-fashioned, whereas slim fits are in. So in over there is an informal word to mean trendy. Then, after clothes, you can also use the same for somebody's ideas. You can also employ passé to show someone's rather old-fashioned ideas or rather orthodox viewpoints, as her ideas on parenting are distinctly passé. And that's to say that her ideas on parenting are clearly old-fashioned. And finally, you can also use passé for technology, and you have a sentence as keypads are passé, touch screens are all the rage. So that's to say that keypads are out of date, whereas touchscreens are all the rage. Now, all the rage is once again an idiomatic usage that suggests something that is trendy. So this says that keypads are out of use, whereas touchscreens are the in thing or the trendy thing. So that was term number 14, passé. We move on to French term number 15. At number 15, we've got a similar sounding cousin of passé. This time we have blasé. So once again, you see that aigu on top of E, turning it into not blaze, but blasé. Coming to the meaning right away. So if you are unimpressed with or indifferent to something because you have seen or experienced it so often before, you are said to have become blasé about it. In other words, if you've seen, done, or experienced something so very often in the past or so regularly in the past that it starts seeming ordinary to you and you start becoming indifferent towards it, it just doesn't move you anymore, or it doesn't matter much to you really. So you are said to have become blasé about it. So once again, you use the expression blasé along with the preposition about. Let's get into some examples to understand the meaning better. So the first one expresses someone's indifference towards something, that they find it ordinary, and the sentence reads, being from the mountains, he was blasé about the charming view. So let's say there's a very charming natural view and it has captivated someone from the city, but at the same time, someone who was reared in the mountains, was born and brought up there, to them it would extract a very minimal reaction, something like, meh, seen it many times before. So it's very ordinary for them. So their indifference to that view being expressed in the sentence as he was blasé about the charming view. Coming to another sentence, this time it reads, rich and privileged children are blasé about what excites poor children. So an unfortunate social truth. So this suggests someone's indifference once again, or it's something that seems ordinary to somebody who's privileged. So let's say if something as simple as an ice cream or a bicycle that would put a broad smile across the face of somebody who is underprivileged or poor, the same things would extract or elicit a minimal reaction, just like a shrug of the shoulders, from someone who's seen it, who's rich and privileged, who's seen it or experienced it way too much in the past. And I mean, looking at an ice cream, someone who's had it like 100 times in the past, or a bicycle, perhaps you own it a whole bunch, and then the reaction would be very, very minimal. Another shrug of the shoulders, as I suggested. So again, they are very indifferent towards it. They find it very ordinary because they've done it they've owned such things way too often in the past, and the same expressed as rich and privileged children are blasé about what excites poor children. And a final one, the modern world has become blasé about global warming. So yes, another unfortunate truth from the society one more time. So gone are the days when many eyebrows would be raised in concern for the global warming. But as you know, over the passing years, there have been too many discussions and people have just sort of moved on with their lives and they've become indifferent about it. And you have the same expressed as the modern world has become blasé about global warming. So I hope you are not becoming blasé about the French expressions. With that hope, we move ahead to expression number 16. At number 16, we have gourmet. So that's the native French pronunciation, gourmet, but you can have the same in English quite simply as gourmet. Gourmet. So who is a gourmet? A gourmet is a connoisseur of good food, or quite simply an expert of good food, someone who has a discerning palate and knows a lot about food. So a sentence to the same effect, we have it quite simply as, your uncle is quite the gourmet. He knows a lot about food. So that's number 16, gourmet. At number 17, we have a very close cousin of gourmet, and you have the word as gourmand. So gourmand, the native French pronunciation, but you've got the English version quite simply as a gourmand. So gourmand, that's the British English equivalent. You also have the American pronunciation as a gourmand. It's really up to you, the one you prefer. You've got gourmand, you've got gourmand. So who is a gourmand? Now, gourmand has two meanings in modern language. The first meaning is exactly the same as a gourmet. In fact, it is synonymous to gourmet as a food expert. We already discussed that. So you may as well have your first sentence as, your uncle is quite the gourmand. He knows a lot about food. However, there is another meaning to it, and the other meaning, or rather the more prior meaning, is a person who enjoys eating and eats large amounts of food. And you have a sentence illustrating the same as, it is only natural for a gourmet to turn into a gourmand. So a final word on the distinction between gourmet and gourmand is that indeed gourmand also means a gourmet. But if you talk about a more prior meaning, or if you get into the finer distinction, the exact difference between the two, so primarily you will use the term gourmand for somebody who eats a lot and enjoys food. And if you're talking about expertise of food, the first term that you would prefer will be gourmet, and then you would have the second alternative as a gourmand. So gourmand, the one who eats more, and a gourmet, the one who enjoys the taste more. He doesn't necessarily have to be a gourmand. So that's numbers 16 and 17, gourmet and gourmand. We move on to number 18. At number 18, we have ourselves an exclamatory expression, one that you may perhaps have come across on television sometimes, and this adds a sense of joy or completion to your speech. And the word quite simply is voila. So I'm sure you can sense that hint of positivity and energy in there. So the word is voila, and luckily it's pronounced very much the way it is spelt. You have VOA that comes out as wa, with just hint of O in there, but not very enunciated. So you've got wa and then LA, voila. Now, the literal meaning of voila in French is there is. However, we do not use it in this very same sense in English. In English, it's quite simply used as an expression that, as already discussed, that expresses satisfaction. So wherever in your speech you are about to express something with added joy or a sense of completion or satisfaction, or just a hint of positivity, that is wherein you insert the expression voila. I know that doesn't help exactly, but let's go to a few examples to understand the same. So our first example, let's say somebody is going ahead instructing a recipe, and they are at the final stages and they're near completion, near that satisfactory ending. So that is expressed as, at last we leave it in the oven and voila, your banana pie is ready. So that's to say that we leave it in the oven and there you go, your banana pie is ready. Voila. Another one, in the second sentence, let's say somebody is instructing the use of a certain machinery, and they instruct it as thus, just push the red button and turn the knob halfway and voila, you're good to go. And that says that turn the knob halfway and there you have it. You are all set to use it. Another one, a third one, this time perhaps you have been hard at work on some project and finally you have done it, you've managed to complete it successfully. You express your joy as, and voila, I've done it, which means, and there it is, I have done it. So you see that positivity in there. And finally, let's say some fashion advice in progress. So you have this sentence as, add your favorite accessories and voila, you're all set for the party. And that says that add your favorite accessories and you are good to go. You are all set for the party. So that was number 18, and voila, with that we are all good, all set for number 19. We come to number 19, which is métier. One more time, métier. Let's have a look at the word. The spelling goes thus. So you've got M-E. However, you have an aigu on top of E. That gives you not me, but me. T-I. You've got that soft T consonant sound in French giving you T-I as T. And then you have E-R, which turns into A-Y sound giving you A. And in totality, you've got métier. However, in English, once again, you're going to drop the rules of French pronunciation and we're going to have ourselves the hard consonants, giving you the English pronunciation for the same as métier. Métier. Let's have a look at that. M-A-Y, may, T-I with the hard T as tea, and A-Y-A, métier. So what is métier in English? In English, in fact, métier has a threefold meaning. Let's start with the first one. You have that as a profession or occupation. So let's go to an example for the same. So speaking for myself, I'd say that teaching is my métier and I love it. And that's to say that teaching is my profession and I love it. Going to the second meaning, métier in English also means an occupation or activity that one is good at, one of their strengths, professional strengths. So let's have a sentence for the same, that he is a gourmet. I hope you're with me, you remember. So he is a gourmet and hence his métier is food. And that's to say that he is a food expert and hence his strength or his area of knowledge is food. Coming to the third one, the final meaning, which is an outstanding personal quality or strength. So any personal characteristic of yours that's positive is also considered your métier. So a sentence for the same, that let's say if somebody is devoid patience, they're not very patient, so you can express that as that patience is not his métier. And that's to say that patience is not one of his personal strengths. So that's métier, a threefold meaning, very useful word. One more time, the pronunciation in native French, métier, but in English, métier. So that's métier. With that, we move on to the final, number 20. At number 20, we've got a rather very popular French usage in English, and the word is rendezvous. One more time, rendezvous. So that's the native French pronunciation. Let's dissect that. So we have R-E-N, which in French turns into something like G-H-O-N. You've got a nasal N giving you rend. Then D-E with the soft D syllable over here as de, rendez. And then V-O-U-S turns into V-O-O, giving you rendezvous, or put together rendezvous. However, once again, we drop those rules of French pronunciation in English, and in English we have it comfortably as R-O-N, ron, D-A-Y, day, and V-O-O, rendezvous. One more time, the native French, rendezvous, but in English, rendezvous. Now, what is rendezvous? Just like the previous word métier, this too has a threefold meaning in English. Let's start with the first one. So, rendezvous in English is a meeting at an agreed time and place. So essentially a meeting, an example for the same. So let's say if you're running late for a meeting, you express that as that I'm running late for my rendezvous with my old friends. And that's to say that I'm running late for my meeting with my old friends. That's the first one. Coming to the second usage, in English, rendezvous can also mean the meeting place itself. So first we had it as a meeting, this time it's a meeting place. So the sentence for the same, why don't you use my place as a rendezvous for you and your friends? And that's to say that why don't you use my place as a meeting point or a meeting place for you and your friends? And if you are a fan like many, and myself included, if you're a fan of the Friends series, you would know that Central Perk was the favorite rendezvous for the 6 friends. Coming to the final one, the third usage or the meaning of rendezvous in English is a bar, a restaurant, a cafe, and so on, or any such establishment that is used as a popular meeting place. So a sentence to the same, that coffee houses are generally ideal rendezvous for the reason that you can sit there at length. So you may have noticed in the sentence that I used rendezvous, and that's to say that rendezvous can also be turned into plural as rendezvous. However, do take care that in writing the spellings will not change. So one more time, coffee houses are considered ideal rendezvous because you can sit there at length, and that means that coffee houses can be considered as ideal meeting places because you can sit there for a long time. So that was the use of rendezvous in the sense of a noun. In English, rendezvous is also used as a verb, and that's to say it can be used as an action word itself, and hence all the tenses would be applicable to it. Let's go ahead with some examples. So first one, let's say I'm rendezvousing with my friends at 7 in the evening. And that's to say that I'm meeting my friends at 7 in the evening. Let's take it in the simple present that I rendezvous with my old colleagues once a month. And that's to say that I meet my old colleagues once a month. Let's try something in the past. We rendezvoused at a bar last month, and that's to say that we met at a bar last month. So that's rendezvous as rendezvousing, rendezvoused, because it's a verb, so it can be taken in all tenses. So you've got rendezvous in English that can be used as a verb as well as a noun. So quite a useful term. And with that, we come to the end of the final term as well. And voila, with that we come to the end of this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed getting drenched into French. If you have, please go ahead and show the video some love, give it a like and a share. Meanwhile, I'll be busy working on another useful project and bringing it to you as soon as possible. For now, this is Mohit Sehgal signing off. I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for your time. Au revoir.